Imagine you fall deathly ill in the year 1659.
Okay.
You're sweating, your fever is just absolutely spiking, and you are, like, desperate for a cure.
Right.
So the respected, university-educated town doctor arrives. He's in this crisp coat, takes one look at you, and decides the best possible course of action is to slice your arm open and bleed you into a bowl until you pass out.
Naturally. The pinnacle of medicine.
Right. And if that doesn't work, he might force you to swallow toxic heavy metals to induce violent vomiting.
Just brutal.
It is. That is the accepted, respectable medical science at the time. But if you sneak out of your house in the dead of night, walk to the absolute edge of town, and knock on the door of the most feared, despised, and legally ostracized man in your community.
The hangman.
Exactly. The man whose literal job is to torture people and chop off their heads. If you go to him, he will actually give you a carefully measured herbal tincture that saves your life.
It's just wild. It is one of the most profound and honestly fascinating paradoxes of early modern Europe. You have the state-sanctioned killer acting as the most competent trauma surgeon and pharmacist in town.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, for you, our resident learner, we are throwing all of our modern assumptions about medicine and justice and societal respectability totally out the window.
Oh, yeah. We are plunging into a world where that boundary between violence and healing doesn't just blur, it completely shatters.
So in this deep dive, we are immersing ourselves in the dark, historically rich, and incredibly complex world of 17th century Bavaria.
Right.
We're using the factual historical events and those rigid societal structures depicted in Oliver Pötzsch's historical novel, The Hangman's Daughter,
Right.
which was translated by Lee Shadane, by the way,
Yeah.
to explore this absolutely wild reality.
And we are anchoring this exploration in a very specific place and time.
Yeah, set the scene for us.
So we are looking at Schongau. It's a town in what was known as the Priest's Corner of Bavaria in the year 1659. And our mission today is to pull apart the collision of brutal frontier justice, emerging medical science, and mass hysteria. We're looking at a community that's still reeling from the unimaginable, continent-shattering trauma of the 30 Years' War.
Which was just devastating.
Completely. Ultimately, we are going to explore the mechanics of how a society handles unexplainable tragedies and how the outcasts, the people everyone else literally spits on, are often the only ones holding the social fabric together.
I want to start by figuring out the psychology of the man at the center of all this.
Jakob Kuisl.
Right. The hangman of Schongau is Jakob Kuisl.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand from the source material, to figure out who Jacob is in 1659, we have to go back 35 years to the event that completely broke him as a child.
Yeah, we have to.
So take us back to October 1624.
Right. So we have to look at the environment that forged him. In October 1624, the town is holding a church fair.
Okay.
The mood is incredibly festive. The sun is out after a week of rain. There's, the smell of roasted meat and fried dough in the air.
Sounds like a standard fare.
Minstrels are playing fiddles, but the town is celebrating because they are about to watch a young woman be put to death.
Wow.
Yeah. Executions in this era were not hidden away. They were highly anticipated public theater.
Right.
But if you walk away from the town square, down into the foul-smelling tanner's quarter just outside the city walls, you find the house of the current executioner, Johannes Kuisl.
And this is Jacob's father.
Exactly.
And this is where my assumptions were immediately challenged.
Oh, so?
Well, I always pictured historical executioners as these stoic, sociopathic
Right.
monsters.
Right.
Men with black hoods who feel absolutely nothing when they drop the axe. But Johannes Kuisl is a wreck.
He really is.
The bailiff is knocking on his door to summon him to the execution, and Johannes is passed out in his kitchen table.
Yeah.
His hair is swimming in a puddle of spilled beer and cheap brandy. His 12-year-old son, Jakob, is trying to shake him awake, and the kid notices that his giant of a father smells like a mix of alcohol and cold, terrified sweat.
It's a really pathetic image.
It is. What is happening to him psychologically here?
He is buckling under the weight of state-mandated murder.
Wow.
What the historical record and this text makes really clear is that men like Johannes Kuisl were rarely sadists.
Okay.
Johannes is usually a very moderate man, but the moment the town authorities pronounce a death sentence, his entire demeanor shifts.
Like a flip is switched.
Exactly. He stops eating, he barely speaks, he wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, completely drenched in sweat.
That sounds like severe PTSD.
Absolutely. To cope with the reality of what he has required to do, he begins to drink heavily. He basically has to chemically numb himself to survive the psychological toll of his profession.
Jesus.
It becomes so intense in the days leading up to an execution that his wife actually packs up their younger children and leaves the house.
Wait, she leaves?
Yeah, she goes to stay with relatives. She literally cannot bear to be around him.
But wait, if the wife leaves, why is 12-year-old Jacob still there? Why subject a child to that kind of psychological meltdown?
Because Jacob is the eldest son. Yeah. In the rigid caste system of the time, the eldest son of an executioner is the apprentice.
He has no choice.
None. He must stay behind, watch his father fall apart, and then assist him in the killing.
That is, I can't even imagine.
But what is truly terrifying for young Jacob is the transformation that occurs the moment Johannes puts on his official uniform.
The stained overcoat, the leather cape, the heavy gloves.
Precisely. Once he dresses for the role, the crying and the shaking stop.
Really?
Yeah. His voice drops into this calm, deep register. He completely compartmentalizes the trauma and becomes the mechanical instrument of the state.
He ceases to be Johannes the father.
And becomes Kuisl the executioner.
Man, I'm trying to visualize the actual tool he uses, because it's not the curved axe you see in the movies, right?
No, at all.
It's a massive sword. The text describes it as over 2 arms lengths long, with a short crossguard, and crucially, it has no point at the tip.
Right, it's flat.
It's entirely flat at the end, but the edge is sharp enough to cut a hair in midair. And it's a generational weapon passed down from his father-in-law, Your Gabriel.
Yeah.
How heavy is something like that, and what are the actual mechanics of using it?
So, an executioner's sword from this period, a Richtschwert, was a highly specialized instrument.
Okay.
Like you said, it lacked a point because it was completely useless for thrusting or combat. It was designed exclusively for chopping.
Makes sense.
They're incredibly heavy, often weighing several pounds, with the balance point shifted further down the blade.
To give it more swing.
Exactly, to maximize the kinetic energy of a sweeping swing. The executioner had to use 2 hands and rely on centrifugal force.
Wow.
It required immense upper body strength and just years of specialized muscle memory.
Which brings us to the target of that sword.
Right.
The condemned woman is named Elizabeth Clement, but everyone calls her Lilisol. She's a beautiful local maid, and the story is that another maid found a dead newborn buried behind the barn. Lizel was accused of child murder, and under torture, she confessed to it.
Though she refused to name the father.
Right. I want to pause on that.
Yeah.
They dragged her out of a dungeon where she's been sitting in total darkness, in her own filth.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Her head is completely shaved. She's screaming and kicking. But then, Johannes Kuisl, the man who is about to kill her, does something incredibly strange.
He steps up to her.
Yeah, he steps up to her, puts his massive hands on her shoulders, and whispers to her. And only young Jacob hears it. He says, "It won't hurt, Lil. I promise it won't hurt."
Yeah.
How does he have the authority to make a promise like that?
He doesn't, legally speaking.
All right.
No, this is a moment of profound secret subversion. Johannes Kuisl recognizes the human being in front of him,
Right.
so he lifts her onto the wagon and forces her to drink from a small vial he brought with him.
What's in it?
It's a narcotic concoction. Within moments, her eyes glaze over, she stops trembling, and she goes completely limp. He is effectively anesthetizing her against the horrific pain the state has ordered him to inflict.
I need to push back on this, though.
Okay, go ahead.
If he's the official instrument of the state, isn't he risking his own life by subverting the punishment?
Oh, absolutely.
Because the judges ordered a specific, highly painful execution. The text says that before he cuts her head off, he has to stop at the 4 corners of the town hall, the Ballon House, and a blacksmith uses glowing red-hot iron pincers to tear the flesh of her arms and her breasts.
Yeah, the tearing of flesh was standard for that kind of crime.
But if the judges realize she's totally numb and just like humming a nursery rhyme instead of screaming in agony, wouldn't they punish the hangman?
You are hitting on the exact tension of the executioner's role here. He is taking a massive risk.
I imagine.
But the executioner held a bizarre amount of discretionary power in the moment. The magistrates are watching from a balcony, sure.
Right, from above.
But the hangman is the one managing the physical reality on the ground. As long as the steps of the execution are carried out.
Like checking the boxes.
Exactly. The tearing of the flesh, the public parade, the beheading. As long as that happens, the authorities might turn a blind eye to the condemned's lack of screaming, perhaps just assuming she's in shock.
But he doesn't do this for everyone.
Yeah.
The text specifically notes that 10 years prior, he executed a man named Peter Hausmeer.
Right.
Hausmeer had murdered someone and robbed a church. Kuisl broke him on the wheel, which is an unfathomably brutal way to die.
It really is.
And he gave Housemere absolutely no potion. Housemere felt every single bone break and screamed until his spine snapped.
Exactly. And this reveals the hangman as the ultimate secret judge of character.
Oh, interesting.
The official magistrates handed down the sentences, right? But Johannes Kuisl decided how those sentences were actually experienced.
He had the final say on the pain.
Yeah. He looked at Housemere and decided he deserved the agony. He looked at Liesl, a terrified, likely exploited young maid, and decided she deserved mercy.
Let's look at the crowd watching this, too. You mentioned earlier it's a festival atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
They've gathered early to get good views.
Yeah.
They are eating sweets.
Like popcorn at a movie.
Exactly. Minstrels are juggling and singing mocking ballads about Liesl's dead baby. They just want blood.
They absolutely do.
It makes me think of the executioner as the ultimate essential worker of the 17th century.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Right. The society absolutely demands this dirty work be done. They crave the spectacle. They demand the moral equilibrium of seeing the criminal punished.
Yes.
Yet, they completely ostracize the man who does it, just so they can pretend their own hands are clean.
The society outsources its collective violence to a single individual,
Yeah.
and then they legally and socially punish him for carrying it out. It is a profound hypocrisy.
It really is.
The crowd views the execution as a reinforcing mechanism for their own righteousness, but their entire moral superiority hinges on the executioner doing his job with mechanical, flawless efficiency.
And what happens when that mechanical efficiency breaks down? Because the execution of Elizabeth Clement goes horribly, catastrophically wrong.
It results in a scene of unimaginable trauma.
Yeah, walk us through it.
So, the choreography of the beheading requires the condemned to sit perfectly still, upright in a chair or kneeling.
Right.
But because of the powerful narcotic Johannes gave Liesl, she has no muscle tone. She is just sagging forward.
Oh, no.
So Johannes orders his 12-year-old son, Jakob, to step onto the bloody wooden platform.
The kid.
The kid! He has to grab the condemned woman by her shorn hair and pull her head upright so the neck is exposed.
I just think about the physics of this for a second.
Yeah.
The executioner has to swing this heavy, blunt-tipped sword in a massive arc and strike precisely between two of the tiny cervical vertebrae to cleanly sever the head in one blow.
One blow is the goal, yes.
Because if you hit the skull, the sword bounces. If you hit the shoulder blade, it gets stuck.
Right.
As Johannes swings the sword, young Jakob is terrified. His hands are covered in nervous sweat. His fingers slip from Liesl's hair.
Which is the worst possible timing.
She falls forward just as the sword comes down.
And the sword misses the neck entirely.
Oh, God.
The heavy steel blade strikes the side of her head at ear level, cleaving deep into her skull.
That is horrific.
And it doesn't kill her instantly. She snaps out of her narcotic daze and begins screaming like a slaughtered animal. She rolls away on the wooden planks.
The horror of this. Johannes has to reset his stance and swing again while she's moving.
While she's actively thrashing.
And the second blow hits her high on the shoulder, hacking deep into the meat of her neck, but still not severing the spine.
Blood is fountaining everywhere.
She is crawling on all fours toward the edge of the platform. And what is the crowd doing? The same crowd that was eating sweets and singing.
Oh, you know what they're doing.
They start howling in anger. They start throwing rocks at the hangman. They are furious that he is bungling the job.
The crowd's reaction is deeply revealing. They aren't horrified by the violence, you know?
Right, they don't care about Liesl.
They are outraged by the incompetence. The illusion of a clean, state-sanctioned transfer of justice has just been shattered.
It reveals the raw, ugly butchery underneath.
Exactly. It takes Johannes Kuisl a third frantic blow to finally hit the spinal cord and stop her agonizing screams.
Jeez.
And a fourth blow to saw through the remaining tissue and completely sever the head.
And the severed head rolls across the planks and comes to a stop right at the feet of 12-year-old Jakob.
Yeah.
He drops to his knees, vomits green bile into a puddle of Liesl's blood, and passes out.
Can you blame him?
Not at all. But right before he loses consciousness, he makes a solemn vow to himself.
Right.
He swears to God that he will never, ever follow in his father's footsteps. He decides he will never become a hangman.
Which brings us to the central tragedy of Jacob's life.
Yeah.
Because when the narrative jumps forward 35 years to the year 1659, who is the hangman of Shango?
It's Jakob.
It's Jakob.
The boy who swore he'd rather die than pick up that sword. He's the one pulling the ropes and breaking the bones now. How does that happen? I'm genuinely struggling to understand the logistics of this.
Well,
If he hated it so much, why didn't he just leave? Run away to another town and become a blacksmith or a baker? How does a society trap a person so completely?
to understand why Jacob couldn't just, become a baker, we have to deeply examine the legal and social framework of early modern Europe,
Okay.
specifically the concept of Ehrlosigkeit, or dishonor.
Oh.
In this caste system, trades weren't just jobs, they carried legal moral weight. The executioner's trade was officially categorized as a dishonorable trade.
What does that actually mean in practice, though? Dishonorable how? Like people just look down on you.
No, it was way worse. It meant they were legally and socially polluted.
Polluted.
Yes, they were grouped together with prostitutes, vagabonds, itinerant actors, and gravediggers.
Wow.
And this pollution was considered contagious.
Wait, contagious like a disease?
Exactly like a disease. If an executioner walked into a tavern, he had to sit at a designated, separated table. If he drank from a mug, no honorable citizen would ever drink from that mug again.
They just throw it out.
Or smash it. If he touched a citizen's food in the market, that food had to be thrown away, or the citizen would risk becoming dishonored themselves.
That is insane.
A guild master, like a master baker or blacksmith, would never, ever accept the son of a hangman as an apprentice. To do so would bring dishonor upon the entire guild.
So Jacob was literally walled off from the rest of the economy.
Completely trapped.
He is a massive man now, just like his father.
Yeah.
He wears a long, ragged coat and a broad-brimmed hat to cover his face. He smokes a clay pipe constantly.
Yeah, that's his look.
But the text gives us this incredible juxtaposition. When he is at home, behind the high walls of his property, he is a deeply loving father.
He really is.
He plays bear with his 6-year-old twins, Georg and Barbara. He chases them through the bushes, growling, while they shriek with laughter.
The contrast is deliberately jarring. The source material explicitly points out that the very same massive, scarred hands that gently tickle his children are the hands he uses to wrap the rough hemp noose around a thief's neck on Hangman's Hill.
Wow.
He is a man forced to exist in two entirely irreconcilable realities. He is a monster to the world and a protector to his family.
But this trap doesn't just hold Jacob, it's suffocating his children, too.
Yeah, it passes down.
I want to talk about Magdalena Kuisl. She is 20 years old, described as stunningly beautiful, with her father's thick eyebrows and unruly black hair.
Right.
She's smart, she's literate, but to the town of Schongau, she's just the hangman's wench, or the bloody maiden. What kind of future does a girl like that actually have?
Her future is entirely predetermined by her father's dishonor.
Right.
Because the executioners were untouchable, they were forced into a very specific survival strategy. They operated essentially like a cartel.
Here's where it gets really interesting. A cartel.
Yes. Over centuries, complex dynasties of executioner families formed across Europe. The Kuisls were one of the largest in Bavaria. Another major family was the Abriels.
Okay.
Because no respectable citizen would marry a hangman's daughter, these families had to intermarry exclusively with each other.
Wow.
Magdalena's mother, Anna Maria, is constantly reminding her of this reality. Magdalena is destined to marry an executioner from a neighboring town.
Someone she's probably never even met.
Exactly. Just to cement trade relations and ensure the survival of their bloodlines.
It's exactly like a mafia family marrying off a daughter to a rival boss to keep the peace.
It's a perfect comparison.
Anna Maria actually scolds Magdalena for reading books. Jacob taught her to read, which is rare, but Anna Maria tells her to stop.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
She warns her not to flirt with the local boys. She says that if a normal girl flirts, people gossip. But if the hangman's daughter flirts, she risks being put in the pillory or the scold's bridle.
Right.
Wait, let me make sure I'm picturing this correctly. What exactly is a scold's bridle?
Oh, it's awful. It was a brutal instrument of public humiliation used primarily against women who stepped out of line, gossiped, or challenged authority.
Okay.
It was a heavy iron cage or muzzle that locked around the head. Crucially, it had a metal plate, sometimes studded with spikes, that was forced into the mouth and pressed down on the tongue,
Oh my God.
making it physically impossible to speak without lacerating the tongue.
Barbaric.
And then the woman would be chained in the public square, the pillory, for the town to mock and throw rotting food at. Anna Maria is pragmatically warning her daughter, We are already outcasts. Do not draw the anger of the honorable society because the punishments for us are unimaginably severe.
But the text mentions that Jacob actually did try to escape this destiny once.
He did, yeah.
Magdalena remembers a bedtime story her mother told her. When Jacob was a young man, instead of taking up the sword, he marched off to fight in the Great War, the 30 Years' War.
Yeah.
I need you to contextualize this. If being a hangman is so terrible, why was going to war his only other option? And why did he eventually come back?
The 30 Years' War, which raged from 1618 to 1648, was one of the most destructive conflicts in human history.
Right.
It wasn't just a political or religious squabble, it was a total demographic collapse.
Yeah.
Roving armies of mercenaries stripped the land bare, bringing plague, famine, and mass slaughter.
Horrific stuff.
In some German states, up to 50% of the entire population was wiped out.
Half the population.
Yeah. Jacob chose to walk into that meat grinder because the military was the only institution desperate enough for bodies that they didn't care about his dishonorable birth.
So he chose a continent-spanning religious slaughterhouse over his hometown slaughterhouse.
Precisely. But what he found in the war likely destroyed whatever idealism he had left.
Yeah.
He realized that the honorable world outside was far more chaotic, indiscriminate, and brutal than the highly structured, legally constrained violence of the execution site in Schongau.
That makes a dark kind of sense.
So, traumatized and completely devoid of options, he returned home. He accepted his bloody birthright.
But here is the critical pivot of our deep dive.
Okay.
This forced isolation, this absolute segregation from respectable society, produced an astonishing secondary effect. Because the Kuisl family was forced to operate outside the rules of normal society, they weren't bound by its outdated intellectual constraints either.
What's fascinating here is how that isolation becomes a weird kind of freedom.
Exactly. Which brings us to the clash between old superstition and new science. And this is where the executioner becomes the doctor.
Right.
To understand this, we need to look at the official medicine of the time. We are introduced to Simon Fraunweiser.
Simon, yeah.
He's the 25-year-old son of the town physician. Simon is a bit of a dandy. He wears a black coat with copper buttons, sports a fashionable pointed beard, and wears rose perfume.
Very trendy.
Very. He studied medicine at the prestigious university in Ingolstadt. But Simon is deeply, deeply frustrated. Why is a privileged, university-educated doctor so miserable?
Because Simon realizes that the medical establishment of 1659 is intellectually bankrupt.
How so?
The university curriculum in Ingolstadt was entirely based on Galenic medicine.
Right.
This was a system developed by the Greek physician Galen in the 2nd century AD. It posited that human health was entirely governed by the balance of 4 humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm.
So if you get sick, the doctors believe you just have too much of one of the juices.
Exactly. If you had a fever, they believed you had an excess of blood. Therefore, the universal, unquestioned remedy for almost any ailment was bloodletting.
Just drain it out.
Yeah, slicing a vein or applying leeches to drain the excess humor. Or they would administer violent purgatives to induce diarrhea and vomiting, or apply blistering agents to the skin.
It sounds like torture.
It was deeply flawed, often fatal pseudoscience, but it was backed by the immense authority of the church and the academic elite.
But Simon isn't buying it.
No, he's not.
The text shows him secretly pulling down a heavy, controversial book from his shelf. It's called Exercitatio Anatomica de Motu Cordis et Sanguinis by William Harvey.
Right.
What is this book, and why is his father, the chief physician, mocking him for reading it?
William Harvey was an English physician who published that book in 1628. In it, he proposed a revolutionary, paradigm-shifting idea that blood circulates continuously through the body, pumped by the mechanical action of the heart.
Which we know is true.
Right, but this directly contradicted the Galenic model, which claimed the liver constantly produced new blood that was simply consumed by the tissues.
Like it was just eaten by the body.
Exactly. Harvey's concept of circulation implied a mechanical closed-loop system. Simon's professors and his father mocked Harvey because accepting his theory meant admitting that the entire foundation of their medical authority, taught for 1,500 years, was completely wrong.
Right.
Academia violently resisted the paradigm shift.
Simon is desperately trying to apply actual science. He recently saved a local cooper's daughter from a deadly fever.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't bleed her. He used cold water wraps and a new imported medication called Jesuit's powder, which is a yellow bark from the West Indies containing quinine.
Which actually treats fever.
Right. He saved her life. But the townspeople still mistrust him. They just view him as a kid playing with dangerous new ideas.
They want the leeches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But while Simon is struggling with medical theory, Jakob Kuisl is practicing incredible medical reality.
Yes.
I want to dive deep into this.
Yeah.
How does a hangman know more about the human body than a guy who went to medical school?
It comes down to the difference between theoretical abstraction and practical visceral experience.
Okay.
The university physicians read ancient texts about invisible humors. They rarely touched corpses, as dissection was heavily restricted by religious authorities.
Oh, interesting.
The executioner, however, was the ultimate practicing anatomist of the era.
Because his entire job is dismantling the human machine.
Precisely. If you are ordered to place a man on the rack and dislocate his shoulders and hips without killing him, you must possess an exquisite, intuitive understanding of human joints, ligaments, and tendons.
That makes terrible sense.
If you use the breaking wheel to systematically shatter the long bones of the arms and legs, you learn the exact density and structure of the skeletal system.
Wow.
The hangman knows how much force it takes to snap a cervical vertebra because he does it with a sword. He knows the location of major arteries because he has to staunch the bleeding if the judges order a preliminary amputation before a hanging.
That makes total sense, but it is incredibly grim.
Very.
If you spend decades mastering exactly how to take a machine apart, you inadvertently learn exactly how to put it back together.
Exactly. This practical anatomical knowledge allowed executioners to become highly skilled bone setters, surgeons, and physical therapists. When a peasant broke his leg, the university doctor might prescribe a poultice to balance the black bile. The hangman would manually reset the compound fracture, splint it perfectly, and prescribe a specific physical regimen to restore movement.
And it goes beyond just bones. They're also master herbalists.
Oh, definitely.
The text describes Magdalena Kuisl in her father's home, crushing dried thyme, club moss, and rare mountain lovage in a heavy bronze mortar.
Yeah.
She is making something called Our Lady's powder. The executioner knows exactly where to forage rare botanicals in the deep woods because he spends so much time isolated out there.
Right.
What is Our Lady's powder and who is buying it?
It was an herbal compound used as an abortifacient or to regulate difficult menstruation.
Okay.
And the people buying it were the midwives from all the surrounding villages. They would sneak to the hangman's house in secret to purchase his highly effective tinctures and salves.
And this is where the sheer hypocrisy of the society is laid bare.
Yes, exactly.
The very same respectable burghers who cross themselves and spit on the ground when Jakob Kuisl walks past them in the daylight, terrified of his evil eye and his dishonor, are the exact same people sneaking to his back door at midnight.
Yep.
When the university doctor's leashes fail to cure their child's infection, they go begging to the hangman for an herbal poultice. It's like his home is an underground pharmacy.
That's a great way to put it.
They publicly shun him, but privately rely on his scientific expertise for their survival.
It is a stunning double standard. But it is a transactional hypocrisy that allows the Kuisl family to survive and maintain a surprisingly high standard of living.
Oh, they do well.
Yeah, the text notes they have a large property, a stable, a big garden, and plenty of food, which was really rare.
Good for them.
However, this delicate tension between official superstition and shunned science isn't happening in a vacuum. It is about to be heavily pressurized.
Which leads us to look at the town of Schongau itself.
Mm-hmm.
We can't understand the explosion of violence that's coming without understanding the crucible these people are living in.
Right.
The environment is basically a loaded gun. Paint the picture of Schongau in 1659 for us.
It is a society in a state of terminal compounding decay.
Okay.
Schongau was once a proud, wealthy town that rivaled Augsburg in trade, but now the physical infrastructure is just collapsing.
Falling apart.
The Ballenhaus, the central town hall, has plaster literally falling off the walls. The entry gates hang crooked on rusted hinges.
Sounds bleak.
The vital trade routes that sustained their economy were permanently rerouted or destroyed during the 30 Years' War. The streets are filled with unemployed, desperate mercenaries and vagrants who survived the war but have no place in a peacetime economy.
And the weather itself seems to be against them. This is the era of the Little Ice Age, right?
Yes, exactly.
The text mentions that in just the last 4 years, catastrophic hailstorms have annihilated the crops twice.
Devastating.
Then a massive rainstorm caused the Lys River to flood, and the floodwaters literally washed away the town mill. Think about what that means. The citizens now have to walk or cart their grain to distant towns just to grind it into flour, costing them money and time they absolutely do not have. Farms are abandoned, fields are rotting.
And the human toll is catastrophic.
Yeah.
The text states that a full third of the town's population has died over the past few decades from plague, dysentery, and starvation.
A third.
A third. The poverty is visceral. People are forced to keep their livestock, pigs and goats, inside their actual living quarters just to survive the winter.
Inside the house.
Inside the house. They are subsisting on turnips and cabbage from tiny kitchen gardens. If you buy bread in the market, it is so full of cheap husks and sawdust that it crunches when you chew it.
I want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of a citizen in Shongao. You're perpetually hungry, your neighbors are dropping dead of fever, your town's physical and economic glory is gone.
Yeah.
When an entire community suffers relentlessly like this, the human psyche breaks. You cannot simply accept that this is random bad luck or that God is mysteriously punishing you for no reason.
No, people can't accept that.
You crave an explanation. You demand a villain.
The psychological burden of arbitrary suffering is intolerable. Mass trauma tills the soil perfectly for mass hysteria.
Wow, yeah.
When people feel entirely powerless against nature and the economy, they will desperately seek out a human target they can control and destroy. They need a scapegoat to restore their sense of agency.
And no one in Shongao embodies this compounding, senseless tragedy more than a local wagon driver named Joseph Grimmer.
Joseph Grimmer.
Joseph Grimmer's life story is almost unbelievable. He has had 8 children in his life.
8.
7 of them are dead.
It's just unfathomable.
He lost Hans, age 6, who drowned in the river. He lost little Marie, just 3 years old, who was crushed to death in a narrow alleyway when a group of drunken mercenaries rode their horses through a crowd.
Awful.
The rest died of the plague, diarrhea, or fever. And as if that wasn't enough, his wife Agnes bled to death in her bed during childbirth, and the infant died with her.
Joseph Grimmer is a man hollowed out by grief. All he has left in the world is his 12-year-old son, Peter.
Right?
Grimmer represents the raw, exposed nerve of the entire dying town.
And right into this incredibly tense, paranoid, emotionally devastated atmosphere drops a literal dead body.
The inciting incident.
It is the absolute perfect spark to ignite the powder keg. Let's look at the inciting incident of the mystery. It's early morning. The fog is rolling off the Lech River. A woodcutter on the steep riverbank sees something caught in the foaming eddies spinning around a massive log.
Right.
It's a boy.
The boy is fighting desperately, kicking and thrashing in the freezing water, trying to hold onto the slippery timber.
Yeah.
The woodcutter screams for help from some local raftsmen who are preparing to float timber down to Augsburg.
Okay.
The raftsmen grab their long poles, hook the boy, and drag him onto the rickety wooden pier at Kinzau. But the physical state of the child is horrific.
His face is swollen and turning blue. The back of his skull is visibly crushed, leaking blood onto the wet planks.
Yeah.
He is convulsing, groaning, and murmuring incomprehensibly. As his lungs begin to fail, bright red bubbles of blood and saliva froth at his lips.
So disturbing.
A wagon driver in the crowd recognizes the clothes. It's Peter Grimmer, Joseph Grimmer's absolute last surviving child.
They load the dying boy onto an ox cart and rush him the 2 hours over rough roads to Shongao.
Okay.
By the time the cart arrives at the town landing site, a massive crowd has formed and followed them. Washerwomen, peasants, stray dogs barking.
Because everyone knows everyone.
Exactly. They lay the boy on some straw near the riverbank. This is when Joseph Grimmer pushes his way through the crowd.
Oh, man.
He falls to his knees in the mud. He brushes the wet hair from his son's bruised face. A final spasm shakes the boy's body, and Peter dies right there in his father's arms.
Grimmer throws his head back and lets out this high, shrill wail of total agony. It echoes across the river.
Yeah.
It's the sound of a man who has had the last piece of his soul ripped out. That scream reaches the ears of Simon Fraunweiser, the young physician's son we talked about earlier.
You're right.
A tanner bangs on Simon's door, and Simon sprints down to the pier. And here is where Simon does what the older, university-trained doctors wouldn't bother to do. He actually examines the body.
Simon applies the anatomical curiosity he learned from his forbidden books.
Right.
He notes the crushed skull, but he recognizes that a massive rolling log in the rapids could easily cause that kind of blunt force trauma.
So it could just be a tragic accident.
Right, it could be. But then Simon rips open the boy's wet, blood-soaked shirt.
He wipes the blood away from the chest with a rag, and he counts them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7.
7 distinct, deep stab wounds clustered directly around the boy's heart. This wasn't a kid falling into the river.
No, definitely not.
Someone caught this boy, slashed at his chest in a frenzied, psychotic rage, and then threw him into the rapids to die. But wait, it gets so much worse.
It does.
That isn't even the most chilling discovery. Simon rolls the body over.
Right.
And what does he find?
On the boy's back, just below the shoulder blade, Simon finds a mark. It's not a bruise. It's a washed-out purple circle drawn into the skin with a small cross protruding from the bottom.
It looks exactly like the astrological symbol for Venus, or the symbol for female.
Yes.
But to the terrified, starving, traumatized crowd standing on that pier in 1659, it means only one thing. The crowd goes dead silent for a fraction of a second, and then absolute panic erupts.
They scream, "Witchcraft!"
Witchcraft.
The reaction is instantaneous and visceral. The witches have come back to Shangao. They're taking our children.
Wow.
The purple symbol is immediately interpreted as a satanic mark, a brand placed upon the boy's flesh by a servant of the devil.
All of the community's latent paranoia, all their unexplainable suffering from the hail, the floods, and the plague, instantly coalesces into absolute, terrifying certainty. The devil is in Shangao.
And Joseph Grimmer, blinded by a grief so deep it has completely severed his grip on reality, immediately stands up and names the scapegoat.
He points his finger.
He points his finger and screams that Martha Stecklin did this. He claims she painted the devil's mark on his son and murdered him.
Martha Stecklin is the local midwife.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? I want to stop here because this is so crucial. Why the midwife? Why is the woman whose entire life is dedicated to bringing babies into the world instantly accused of being a demonic child murderer?
The accusation against the midwife operates on two levels: the deeply personal and the broadly sociological.
Okay, let's look at the personal first.
On a personal level, remember how Joseph Grimmer's wife, Agnes, died?
She hemorrhaged to death in childbirth.
Right. Martha Stecklin was the attending midwife. Grimmer never accepted that it was a complication of nature. He held Martha entirely personally responsible for his wife's death.
Wow.
In his shattered mind, she killed his wife, and now she has killed his son.
That explains Grimmer. But the whole crowd instantly agrees with him. Why is the rest of the town so ready to burn the midwife?
Because of the unique, precarious sociological position of midwives in early modern Europe. Midwives operated in the most terrifying, high-stakes, high-mortality space in 17th century life: the birthing room.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Infant and maternal mortality rates were staggeringly high. Therefore, the midwife was a figure constantly surrounded by blood, screaming, and sudden death, despite her best efforts to bring life.
It's just a grim reality of the time.
Furthermore, childbirth was a strictly female domain. Men, including the official town doctors and priests, were generally excluded from the room.
So you have a woman operating in secret, wielding specialized knowledge that the patriarchal authorities don't understand or control.
Precisely. She uses mysterious herbal decoctions, ergot to induce labor, goose fat for lubrication, and terrifying iron instruments in emergencies.
Right.
To a patriarchal, deeply superstitious, and scientifically illiterate society, a woman possessing that kind of autonomous power over life and death is deeply unnatural.
It borders on the magical.
It does. And in 1659, unauthorized magic is inherently satanic. When a stressed society looks for a witch, they almost always look at the women who exist on the margins of male control, women who hold specialized secret knowledge. Martha Stecklin is the perfect, historically inevitable scapegoat.
And once that scapegoat is identified, the fragile social order of Shangao completely and violently collapses.
Yeah.
We are watching the real-time formation of a lynch mob. Which brings us to the climax of this deep dive: the confrontation between mob justice and the hangman's law.
Right.
Because what happens next is a profound, almost dizzying role reversal. The official torturer has to become the sole protector of the innocent.
To appreciate the tragedy of this, the text shows us exactly what Martha Stecklin has been doing while the mob is forming at the river.
What's she doing?
She is completely unaware of Peter Grimmer's death. She has just returned home from a grueling 30-hour shift at the home of a local family, the Klingensteiners.
The description of this birth is incredible, and it highlights exactly what you were just saying about her medical expertise.
It really does.
Maria Josepha Klingensteiner is 40 years old. This is her 13th pregnancy.
Right.
And only 4 children are still alive.
Heartbreaking.
The baby is breech. It's coming out the wrong way.
Yeah.
Martha is exhausted. Her arms are smeared up to the elbows in goose fat.
Yeah.
She is reaching deep inside the mother's birth canal, trying to manually turn the child by its feet.
Mm-hmm.
She's been fighting this physical battle for hours.
hours.
She even has a brutal iron poker with a hook on the end sitting in the fire.
Yeah.
Knowing that if the baby dies and gets stuck, she will have to use the hook to pull the corpse out piece by piece just to save the mother from going septic.
It is a visceral, bloody, agonizing battle for human life.
And Martha wins.
She does.
Using immense physical strength and anatomical skill, she manages to grasp the boy's feet and pull him out alive. She saves both the mother and the newborn.
It's amazing.
She then prepares a strengthening medicinal broth of wine, garlic, and fennel for the mother, washes the blood off herself, and finally walks home. She hasn't slept in over 30 hours. She hasn't eaten a full meal in 2 days.
She is the literal bringer of life to this town.
She gets back to her small house, sits down at her kitchen table, and tries to eat a bowl of cold porridge. And that is when she hears the chanting echoing down the narrow streets from the market square.
Stecklin, you witch! To the stake with you! Burn her!
The speed at which the mass hysteria mobilizes is terrifying.
It really is. The men marching on her house are raftsmen, tanners, and wagon drivers, the very fathers and husbands of the women Martha has spent her life caring for.
That's the craziest part.
But the mob mentality has completely erased their humanity, their logic, and their gratitude. They are operating entirely on raw fear and bloodlust.
Martha looks out her window to see what's happening, and she is immediately hit right in the forehead by a fist-sized rock thrown from the street.
Boom.
She stumbles back, bleeding heavily over her eyes, half-conscious. She throws her body weight against her heavy oak front door and slides the iron bolt shut, just as the men start ramming into it.
Yeah, they're not stopping.
They grab a heavy wooden beam from nearby construction site and start using it as a battering ram, smashing the door to splinters. "Come out, or we'll burn the house down with you inside." They are screaming.
She is trapped like a hunted animal in her own home.
She realizes the door won't hold, so she runs out the back door into her small vegetable garden, which borders the high stone city wall.
Right.
But a window shutter smashes behind her, and Joseph Grimmer climbs through.
He found her.
He is wielding a heavy piece of a broken window frame that is studded with rusty nails. He screams at her, "I'm going to kill you before the judges even get the chance to burn you."
So she is terrified. She tries to scramble up a small, frail apple tree to escape over the high city wall, but the branch snaps under her weight.
Oh, no.
She falls hard into a wet, muddy vegetable patch, tearing the skin off her fingertips. Grimmer stands over her.
It's over.
He raises the heavy, nail-studded club high into the air, preparing to bludgeon her skull in. It is completely over for her.
And then a deep, calm voice calls out from above them. "I wouldn't do that if I were you."
I love it.
I love the cinematic staging of this moment so much. Standing up on the battlements of the stone city wall, looking directly down into the garden, is Jakob Kuisl.
The giant hangman.
He's wearing his long, ragged coat and his broad-brimmed hat. And he is casually smoking his clay pipe. He hasn't even taken the pipe out of his mouth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, his intervention is a masterclass in psychological de-escalation.
How so?
Well, Kuisl doesn't start by yelling or physically attacking the mob. He speaks directly to the core trauma driving the violence.
Okay.
He looks down at Grimmer and says, "Killing Martha isn't going to bring your dead wife back, Joseph. Don't make yourself more miserable than you already are." He attempts to pierce the hysteria by acknowledging the grief.
But Grimmer is too far gone.
Way too far gone.
He screams back at Kuisl, telling the hangman to shut his mouth, that this is none of his business. The rest of the mob in the house is hesitating because they are deeply superstitious and terrified of the executioner's evil eye, but Grimmer still demands blood. He points at Martha and yells that she put the satanic mark on his boy and stabbed him.
And here is where Kuisl shifts his tactics.
Right.
He realizes empathy won't work on a mob, so he uses the terrifying cold weight of his office to crush the situation.
He leans into the fear.
He points his massive finger down at Grimmer and states the legal reality. "That is murder, Grimmer. If you strike that woman now, I will be very happy to put the hemp noose around your neck, and because it's you, I promise you, you will die very, very slowly."
Wow.
It's the ultimate trump card.
Kuisl is saying, if you indulge in your illegal, mob-driven violence, I will destroy you with the state's legal, methodical violence. And remember, I am the executioner. I am the one who decides how much it hurts when you die.
Exactly. He literally freezes Grimmer in his tracks.
Just totally shuts him down.
Furthermore, Kuisl strikes at the cognitive dissonance of Grimmer's actions. He asks Grimmer, if she is truly responsible, why did you leave your dead son lying alone on the wet planks of the pier? Why didn't you stay by his body and send the bailiff?
Oh, that's a good point.
This specific question breaks Grimmer's tunnel vision. He suddenly realizes the monstrousness of his own actions. He abandoned his murdered child to go hunt a woman in a vegetable patch.
Oof.
The text notes that tears suddenly well up in Grimmer's eyes as the agonizing reality of his loss finally washes over the blind anger.
With Grimmer emotionally broken and the mob momentarily stunned into silence, Jakob Kuisl leaps down from the high wall, landing heavily in the muddy garden.
Yeah.
The giant walks right past the men with the weapons and goes straight to the bleeding midwife on the ground. He leans down and whispers to her, "Now you will come with me. We'll go to the court clerk, and he will lock you up in the dungeon. That's the only safe place for you at the moment."
This is the central bitter irony of the entire scenario.
Right.
The only way Jakob Kuisl can save this innocent, life-bringing woman from being beaten to a pulp by her own neighbors is to officially arrest her and feed her into the dark, terrifying machinery of the 17th century judicial system.
The hangman must imprison her to protect her from the public. I just can't get over the dark poetry of that moment. Martha Steckland looks up at him. She knows exactly who he is.
She does.
She knows that if the town authorities formally condemn her as a witch, he is the man who will tie her to the stake and light the fire. She thinks to herself, and now he's going to hang me. But first, he saves my life.
Kuis grabs her by the scruff of the neck and physically marches her through the silent, intimidated crowd of men.
Yeah.
He speaks to the mob, promising them that if she is found guilty by the magistrates, she will face the full wrath of justice. But until then, she is under the strict purview of the law.
Wow.
He single-handedly breaks a deadly mass hysteria event, using only the cold, imposing reality of his dishonorable office.
It's an incredible scene. The man society treats as a polluted, soulless monster is the absolute only person acting with humanity, scientific reason, and an adherence to true justice.
And that profound contradiction is what makes the world of 1659 Shanga so utterly compelling. It isn't just a historical curiosity, it is a mirror. It forces us to examine the foundational structures of how human societies operate under extreme stress.
Exactly. And that brings us to the core of why you, listening to this deep dive right now, should care about this.
Right.
Because while we might not be living in a rotting Bavarian town in the 17th century, and we might not fear literal witches painting purple astrological symbols on our backs in the year 2026, the psychological mechanics of the Shangao mob are universally, terrifyingly human.
The underlying triggers of human behavior haven't changed in 400 years.
No.
When a community is chronically stressed, when people feel economically impoverished, politically powerless, and emotionally grieving, the collective instinct is almost always to look for an easy scapegoat.
We still desperately want a simple villain with a recognizable face to blame for incredibly complex systemic failures.
We do.
And tragically, we still often aim our collective anger at the very people who are working on the front lines to hold society together, just like the mob hunting the exhausted midwife who spent 30 hours saving a mother and child.
Yeah.
The impulse to form a mob and burn the witch isn't a relic of the past. It is still very much hardwired into our collective operating system. We just use different words and different platforms to do it now.
Which leaves us with a critical reflection to take away from this historical lens.
Okay.
In the 17th century town, the educated, university-trained, highly respectable doctors are actively ignoring reality and killing patients to protect their obsolete, comfortable theories.
Right.
The vital, life-saving women on the margins are hunted as demons. And the state-sanctioned killer, the man forced to live in the dirt on the absolute fringe of society, is the only voice of reason. He is the only one possessing true practical science, and the only one willing to stand up to the mob for actual justice.
It really forces you to ask yourself, in our own modern crises, when the chips are down and the systems are failing, are we actually listening to the right experts?
Right.
Or are we just following the loudest, most frightened, most respectable voices in the mob? I want you to think about your own industry, your own community, or your own social circles. Who are the outcasts?
Who are the people operating on the margins?
Exactly. What essential, uncomfortable truths might they be seeing from the outside that everyone else in the center is just too comfortable or too terrified to acknowledge?
It's a question that demands we look past the superficial markers of who society deems valuable and who it deems disposable.
Yeah.
Because true insight rarely comes from the people who have the most to lose by disrupting the status quo.
Because sometimes when the world is suffering from a sickness it refuses to understand, the only person who can actually cure you is the guy whose hands are already dirty.
I love that.
Think about that. The next time you assume a clean white coat is the only place to find the truth.